Hi, I'm Kylie Mattu. Welcome to Wealthy Millionaire. Today I'm going to show you 4 ways to break your car lease without a penalty. But first, a disclaimer. I'm not an agent or a lawyer, and this video is for educational purposes only. So always be sure to consult with a professional before making any financial decisions. Leasing a car is a perfect option for those who don't want to pay the full price of a new car up front. If you're intimidated by large payments at the beginning, then a lease could be the right choice for you. There are some definite advantages of a lease. You pay less than you would on a new car, and it's inexpensive to get in and out of an arrangement without damaging your credit. On the other hand, there are times when a lease might not work in your favor. If you lose a job, face challenges in meeting your payments, or if the car isn't suitable for your needs anymore, it may be time to reconsider. While you might want to break your car lease prematurely, doing so could be costly. Fortunately, premature termination isn't your only way out. So how do you break your car lease early? Here are 4 ways to get out of your car lease early without incurring penalties. Number 1, sell your car to a dealer. Before approaching the dealership to return your leased car, it's advisable to find out its value. If your car has a good value, selling it to the dealer may be the cheapest option to get out of your lease. In fact, many lease owners are finding that now is a good time to use this option. The current value of used cars has risen due to a scarcity of used vehicles caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Dealers are now prepared to spend more money to obtain units to meet the demand for used cars. So there might be better value than expected on your almost expiring lease. It isn't a given that this market trend will last for long, so you should look at this option soon if you are considering it. However, depending on your vehicle, you could still end up owing lots of money if you go this option. So you may want to consider some alternatives. Number 2, swap your lease. Swapping your lease allows you to transfer your lease to another individual with whom you have an agreement. Often, all the lease company wants is compensation for what is due. They are willing to accept this payment from someone else. However, this is not always the case. Some lease agreements require you to be in the pact until it expires. So ensure that a lease transfer is acceptable in your lease agreement terms before pursuing this option. Now, why would anyone want to take up your lease? Well, most purchasers want short period leases at an affordable price. So if you have an attractive lease that just isn't working for you, someone else may be happy to take it off your hands. Note that even if you transfer your lease, you generally remain accountable for any costs, such as damage when the lease expires, and you should carefully review your lease agreement before considering a lease swap. Number 3, buy your car, sell it yourself. Depending on your situation and lease, you may be lucky enough to end your car lease with minimal fines. If the leasing company agrees, you can purchase your car and dispose of it yourself. Although you'll not be acquiring it at the market price, it is a lot cheaper than paying heavy penalties. To explore this option, ask for the buyout sum from the leasing company. Ensure that you receive it in writing, either as a hard copy or via email. You should then look up your car's market value. If the difference is less than the lease termination penalties, then go for it. Number 4, buy your car and keep it. This approach is what we call a lease buyout. It entails buying a lease vehicle for personal use when the contract ends or even sooner. If you intend to buy your leased car, you should first ascertain whether or not this is even possible. If it is allowed by your leasing company, there will be a clause in your contract permitting the car to be sold by the leasing company to you. Let's take a look at some frequently asked questions. Can I get a lease buyout loan with bad credit? If you want to buy out your vehicle but don't have enough money on hand to do so, you may consider getting a lease buyout loan to finance your purchase. You can take out a loan from many banks, credit unions, or online lenders to finance the buyout of your lease. However, this may not be the most cost-effective option, especially if you have bad credit. Getting a loan with bad credit can be tricky, and your bank or lender may view your credit as risk and subject you to high interest rates that will be expensive in the long run. In some cases, it may be worth improving your credit before applying for a loan. Compare the terms of your loan to that of your lease before making a decision. Even if buying out your car seems like the best option, it may be unaffordable once you factor in extra costs of paying off a loan. Second question, what is a decent credit score to lease a car? Leasing a car is a great option for people looking to build credit and earn rewards. However, if you fail to fulfill your lease obligations, it could negatively impact your credit score. 620 is usually a car lease credit tier for most dealerships. A tier between 620 and 679 is almost perfect, and dealerships see a tier between 680 and 739 as ideal. Once your score is above 680, there is a probability of receiving attractive lease offers. Number 3, does breaking your car lease affect your credit? Well, if you are in a position just to pay off the remainder of the lease, you can simply return the car to the dealer and pay the balance as well as a penalty fee, also called an early termination fee. And the new car lease can be broken without affecting your credit score. Fourth question, what is the procedure for disputing end of car lease charges? The best way is to send an email to the lease organization highlighting your dispute. You should then follow up with a phone call. In the email, you should attach an invoice copy and point out the charges you wish to dispute and the reason why. Ending your car lease early might be an expensive move. If the cost of completing the lease is minimal compared to other options, then it makes sense to pay it through. Nevertheless, you might discover that the other options to end your lease early better suit your needs. You should explore several options and determine the most economical one for your case. How does a lease differ from buying? Look at leasing like renting. You rent and use someone else's property. In this case, the dealer is the owner. A lease can last a few months to several years. And as mentioned before, when you lease, you don't own the vehicle and you fall under different rights and responsibilities than if you were to buy a vehicle. What are some advantages and disadvantages to leasing? An advantage of leasing allows you to get a newer vehicle with a monthly lease payment that can be much lower than a monthly car loan payment. Disadvantages of leasing includes not owning the vehicle after the payment term. Also, the dealer owns the vehicle and can place restrictions on who can drive the vehicle. You may also have to follow and pay for maintenance schedules set out by the dealer. What are the different types of leases? A straight lease, you return the vehicle when the lease ends and owe nothing more. A closed lease with an option to purchase, this is where you pay an agreed on amount if you decide to buy the vehicle at the end of the lease. In an open lease with an option to purchase, there's less certainty. So at the beginning of the lease, a dealer estimates what a vehicle will be worth at the end of the lease. This is the residual value, and then calculate the monthly payments based on that estimate. If the vehicle is worth less at the end of the lease, you have to pay more to make up the difference. You may also have to pay extra if you drove more than the lease allowed or if the vehicle has more than normal wear. Next question, where does my leased car go after I return it? Typically, a leased car is sold after the lease term ends. Cars may not even be owned by the dealer and may be a possession of a finance company. Wholesale auctions are a good market for these types of vehicles. You may be able to give your lease to someone else. Whether you can do this will depend on if it's permitted within the terms of the lease agreement and if it's acceptable to the leasing company and is legal in your state. There are websites that specialize in lease trading, like swaplease.com and leasetrader.com. Much like selling a car online, you list your car and payment information on the site to find a party who will be interested in assuming your lease under those terms. Another question, what charges can you expect on your final lease payment? You will be responsible for any remaining payment, excess wear and tear, excess kilometers, any charges specified in the lease agreement that hasn't been paid, and all applicable taxes. I hope you enjoyed this session on 4 ways to break your car lease without a penalty. I'm Kylie Matu. Thank you for watching Wealthy Millionaire. And remember, the more you save, the more you earn.